Hi, welcome into the Irish NFL show, presented by Trust Gaming and presented by Matchbook Betting Exchange. Michael FUKC McQuaid, Colin Javonte Williams Cronin, and Brian, same amount of touchdowns as Kenny Galladay O'Leary. Boys, welcome in. Happy Monday night.
Yeah, definitely feeling a little bit after that performance in the Broncos on Sunday Night Football. But look, there were lots of fantastic offensive performances, lots of talking points, and lots for us to get into on tonight's show.
How's the form, Brian?
All good, all good. We found a way to make sure teams that we all selected in our full house of weekend picks lost their way and didn't get the results. And when I saw some people on social yesterday saying, "Oh no, you haven't jinxed us this time," I'm very confident we're going to win that game. I knew then at half-5 the Bengals were not going to beat the Chargers.
Shout out to Tip the Bengals, who's given us a wave. If you want to get your comment on screen, you need to put the chat on Facebook or YouTube. Just search the Irish NFL show and it will come up. Unfortunately, Twitter hasn't seemed to integrate his comments yet, but really appreciate the love, folks, the comments. And obviously, we're live now. We're going to go through as many things as we can from yesterday and look ahead to a decent game tonight. There's a lot of wind, and it's not in Dublin. It's in Buffalo. We'll come back to that in a minute. But will we just jump in? Yeah, jump in last night's action. Yeah,
Go for it. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I decided fantasy-wise to go as all in as I could on the Vikings yesterday, and that went well. The Lions column get a win against the Vikings, improved to 1-10-1, and no team in the league this season will go unbeaten. What were your takeaways from that game? Because for me, obviously Adam Thielen going off in the first quarter, there wasn't an official destination or a downgrade out until the third or fourth quarter. Literally, it's that sort of time of the evening. But for me, it couldn't get a goal in the run game. They had 2 or 3 backup running backs. They never brought into the game. I wasn't happy with how the Vikings approached it, but Lions done well, man, obviously, and you have to give them props. They've been through a very, very rough 11 weeks, and they got the win.
Yeah, no, you do, in fairness. I mean, we at times questioned whether they were playing for Dan Campbell, given everything that we've seen and the manner in which they've lost some of the games, which have been really heartbreaking. And it would have been easy for them, because the Vikings did struggle, but obviously just towards the end, the Vikings go ahead. And at that point, it would have been very easy for the Lions, heads to drop. Here we go again. We're going to lose. But they didn't, and they marched down the field and they got the touchdown. For me, I suppose the takeaways were a couple of things. For the Vikings, and Brian and I had discussed this on our kind of season preview show, there are huge issues with Zimmer. He's in his 8th year now, and this is a Vikings team that has much more talent than they're delivering on. Justin Jefferson is one of the best weapons in the game, and they just find ways to make games close constantly. I say it jokingly in ways, but this is a team that would play the Super Bowl 24 49ers or the 0-16 Lions close. And so it constantly proves. And the killer for me was the way in which they playing prevent defense. I hate it. I don't think it does anything for you. They had gone and gotten the ball back from Goff on the drive to where they took the ball literally out of his hands, but then they play prevent. Everything is in front of him, and even on the touchdown pass at the end, Brian and I were talking about earlier, I don't think the Vikings player knew where he was. I think he thought he was still outside the end zone. But kudos to the Lions for doing it. I think Mike Zimmer, after they had gone and beaten the Packers, they've now lost to the 49ers and to the Lions. I think it might be the end of Zimmer for potentially in Minnesota. They would need a seriously strong run in and a run in the playoffs, I think, in order to keep that his job.
Yeah, I agree with Colin in terms of that. The last drive and how they went defensively, zone, whatever way you want to call it. But yeah, for me, the annoying point, if you're a Vikings fan, is why didn't you not just run the clock down and kick the field goal? because they're at the 2-minute timeout. Sorry, 2-minute warning. The Lions had no more timeouts left. They could have ran the clock down, which is exactly what they did a couple of weeks back against the Packers. If we recall that great game 2 weeks ago where it was high scoring, they had the ball last. They drove down and they had the Packers utilize all their timeouts and they let the clock tick down to kick the field goal. It's exactly what they should have done yesterday. But they took the touchdown thinking the game is over because we're playing a team that hasn't won a game all season and didn't believe that Goff could bring them down the field. And to Colin's point, you blitz them in the previous drive and you get the ball, you literally take the ball away from them and then you go with a completely different scheme defensively. And yeah, I don't think your man knew exactly where he was. I think he thought he held him up, outside the end zone. And for the Lions, I've been critical of Dan Campbell and I wondered whether the team were still with him. But I think Goff's reaction when they won the game, he ran straight over to the head coach. To me, is telling that they do have a lot of respect for him. And we've probably all seen it. The press conference after the game, Campbell, and obviously what's gone on in the past week in that area. So it was nice to see them win a game. For the Vikings, we keep saying, they're a good team and they'll play up against any team. After a while, you have to just, you can't be. They're so inconsistent. Are they really a good team? Or are they just one of these Jackman High teams that on their day will play a good game, but in the long run, they're not good enough. Cousins for me isn't good enough, and they got some great players, and we've seen them other games this season, and they haven't used players like Cook at times. Zimmer's gone. Like I said at the start of the season, I thought he'd be the first head coach to go, and I think Matt Nagy probably will end up being the one that goes before him, but I can't see how he'll remain there next season.
Jared Goff, 25-41, 296 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Really good combination on the wide receiving routes. You got St. Brown with 86 yards, 1 touchdown. TJ Hawkinson with a touchdown, and also Josh Reynolds, 70 yards receiving. And like a 70 yards with Jamal Williams on the rush. Look, this Lions team got it done yesterday. The Vikings, I don't know where to start. I don't think Zimmer will go until the end of the season. I seen a few people calling for his head last night. Stuck in the moment. I just don't see the point in getting rid of him now.
No, I don't think he can be going now, but I just think when it comes to Black Monday, week 18, whatever it is these days, mid-January, he'll be out.
Let's see what happens. Right. H2O. I have to get ready for Storm Barra. He's all okay down there, yeah? All good? No. Excited?
In Dublin, I think out west and down home in Cork, it might be a slightly different story. But this, of course, it's all work from home now. I mean, when we had the Beast in the East, it was great. It was days off, but no longer.
Work from home. Obviously, after our friend Barra Best, going to try and get Barra on the show sometime. I don't even know if he likes the NFL, but let's see the crack. Thanks everyone watching this live. We're going to look at the Chargers against the Bengals now. I want to apologize to every Bengals fan because we all picked the Bengals. I personally thought the Bengals would turn it on against the Chargers based on what I've seen with Justin Herbert column against the Broncos the week beforehand. He wasn't let go enough for me. He was let go yesterday, 317 yards, 3 touchdowns. The offense looked good for a lot of the game, went down a little bit, but at the end of the day, 41 points against the Bengals team. That was 7-4 going into it. Great performance.
Yeah, like the Chargers were very good at times. They started off really well. Then obviously the Bengals came back into it. And then, I mean, this is a Bengals team that did have some injuries, but it is a Bengals team that defensively they give up a lot of points at times. I thought Joe Mixon and the run game, I thought that's what the Bengals would lean on because that had proved, so effective for other teams. I mean, you looked at the Broncos last week, but everyone's been able to run all over the Chargers, and that wasn't the case for the Bengals. Now, Burrow obviously injuring his finger doesn't help anything, and then the mix and fumble is the point where the game really changes. You felt the momentum changed at that point. For the Bengals, I suppose there's Owen with the stats. Well, Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams had him for breakfast. Unfortunately, Owen. And I really thought Mixon coming off 160-yard and 120-yard game. it's tough to know what to make of this Chargers team, right? When Mike Williams is there and catching the ball, they're very good. I mean, Keenan Allen is at least reliable, but it's Mike Williams seems to be kind of the X factor who gives them that little bit something extra and gives Herbert that extra option to go to. You'd have to say at times the Chargers have been incredibly impressive this year, and at other times you really wonder, what the fuss is all about the supporting cast. I think Herbert is a fantastic QB. I think his supporting cast blow very hot and cold, but you saw him at times yesterday. If you give him any time and allow him to take shots, he can pick you apart.
Yeah, we all picked the Bengals because we felt, Columns touched on it, having looked at the Chargers week on, week out, and last week defensively how erratic they've been, and then you had a Bengals team that had put up over 30 points 5 of the last 6 games going into it. And even, in fairness to the Bengals, it's a difficult loss to take because they've been riding a crest of a wave, but they still rallied back. There's a lot of teams in the league that when they're 24-0 down that early, they don't come back at all. They got back to 24-22. 2 touchdowns in the second quarter, 2 field goals, and another field goal tagged on. And I think they went for a couple of 2-point conversions and they missed them. But they got back, and then that turning point, was that, the fumble in the third quarter. And that Chargers defense, as critical as we've been of them, 6 sacks yesterday on board over 2 interceptions. I mean, they caught them on the hop early. They got out. And Michael, you've been calling out for weeks on end when they're going to let Herbert fly. But in fairness, a lot of teams have been holding Mike Williams down for low yards games, and they haven't had that long pass option. And it was certainly there yesterday. And Keenan Allen, we say he's serviceable, but yesterday he had a really good game. He had 2 touchdowns yesterday. It's a big win for the Chargers because, we discussed this weekend how important the games were within your division. I don't think we thought the Chargers were going to be the ones coming out with a win and having picked other games, but it's a big win for them. And Bengals are still well within this division. Never mind a wild card situation. We've seen what's happened. We'll get to the Ravens-Steelers game. Like right now, you'd argue the Bengals are probably still one of the best team, if not the best team in that division.
I think they are personally. Still a lot of, there was obviously injuries there on both sides of the ball for the Bengals yesterday. At one point, Joe Burrow's finger looked like it was about to pop off. I don't know what was going on there, but at the same time, still 300 yards, albeit 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. But T. Higgins getting nearly 140 yards receiving. Tyler Boyd, 85 yards. Jamar Chase, no touchdowns, but 50 yards receiving. So that combination, it does work. An off day for the Bengals. They will go again next week. And love to all the Bengals and Chargers fan. If you're a Chargers fan, by the way, if you want to leave a comment, there's a medium Justin Herbert jersey going. Somebody DM me saying they have one, an extra one. So if you'd like one, leave a comment. You have to be a Chargers fan. All right, I'm not giving one away. I can't remember who it was, but whoever done that, fair play to you. Appreciate it. Seahawks 30, 49ers 23. Last night when the Steelers and the Ravens were playing, and the Ravens were going for 2, I was up in my fantasy game by 1.5 points. I know you don't care about this, right? But at that point then, Jimmy Garoppolo thought it'd be fun to throw the ball to George Kittle. And I ended up losing by 7. And there was like 1.5 minutes left. Oh my. Anyway. George Kittle yesterday had 181 yards on 9 attempts or 9 receivings. Or I can't even talk anymore. I'm not annoyed. Jimmy G called him 299 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. But the 49ers losing against the Seahawks. Seattle are like the most inconsistent team in this league at the minute, but still get the win. Poor mistake from Alex Mack towards the end of the game as well.
Yeah, I think Brian had given the stats in terms of the way in which the Seahawks have owned the 49ers, but didn't think that they would be given how they have been playing over the last few weeks. And Wilson hadn't looked particularly good since he came back from the injury, but all that changed yesterday. Wilson was back to being Russell Wilson, and Jimmy G was Jimmy G. At times very good, but ultimately the 2 picks and just comes up short when the pressure is on, when you need him to deliver. It's just not there. I had thought that this 49ers team were rolling. We had Cynthia on. She was thinking that there were 3 teams going to the playoffs from the NFC West. The Seahawks win might mean that we're now down to 2. and that it may well ultimately cost the 49ers a shot at the playoffs. They've got a huge game against the Bengals next weekend. That's going to be a really interesting one to see how they go against one another. And I think that's definitely one to keep an eye on, because obviously both teams will be looking to bounce back from disappointing defeats. For Seattle, they get a win over an arch rival, which is always pleasant. And you were saying about Kittle, Michael. I don't know if you saw him signing the sign before the game. Kittle wishes he was Gronk. So fair play to him. Good sportsmanship and being willing to sign that.
Well, yeah.
I know they had the opportunity to win the game at the end, the 49ers, but the Seattle team, for me, were the much better side yesterday. And this game should have been out of sight. I mean, the fact that Everett, the tight end, fumbles at the 2-yard line towards the end, and then obviously the 49ers drive 95 yards down the field and looks like they're going to win the game. They can't punch it in. And then there was other red zone opportunities where Seattle slipped up. The game could have been, they should have been home and hosed earlier in the game. But the 49ers yesterday, without Deebo Samuel, looked, I wouldn't say ordinary in offense, but the run game struggled as well. And Deebo Samuel, look, we touched on it last week. He's now becoming like a dynamic wide receiver, running back, a bit of everything. And it was, he was clearly missed yesterday, and the running game really didn't get going properly yesterday. And he had 13 of the last 15 games leading into that game yesterday. Seattle had won, but we all felt that the 49ers would have enough, and they had it there for them to win at the end. But Kyle Shanahan at times this season has just found ways not to get these games won, tight games. And they're similar in many ways. Like right now, them and I think obviously Washington are in the wild card, but it's kind of between the Vikings and the 49ers. And in many ways, they're kind of very similar in the way they're playing at the moment. They're up one week, they're down the next. A few weeks ago, it looked like the 49ers had a great chance of beating the Cardinals. They slipped up in that game, then they come back and beat the Rams. You don't know what you're getting from them 1 week to the next, but as Colin said, it looked like they were starting to get on a bit of a run, and now they go to Cincy next week, which is a difficult game, more so now because they'll be looking to rebound and keep up with teams winning that division. So interestingly how they react next week.
Yeah, decent few weeks for the Bengals. They have that next week. They have the Broncos in Mile High the week after, so they've got two big games for them as well. They'll be trying to win both of them. Travis Homer was exciting for me for Seattle, but this might sound mad. I genuinely thought Adrian Peterson had maybe 50. I know he didn't. He only had 16 yards rushing, right? It seemed like he was more effective in the game. He was effective in those second, third down situations at the goal line, got a touchdown, rolling back the years. But I just find that Seattle had that much flexibility. You're talking Lockett, Metcalf, Eskridge, loads of different guys. I left Lockett on the bench. I'm away to cry. Good luck. I don't want to talk about it. Fair play to Seattle. Seattle 4-8. Maybe they might say. Do you reckon Mark might come on in a few minutes then, Brian, after the Arsenal game, or what's the?
I haven't heard from him. You're the one in contact.
I'm joking.
You probably
Colin,
that result.
Fair play to you at the weekend. You had the moment for Washington football team. Taylor Heineke. Sign him up. What did Rio Ferdinand do in BT Sports? How long do you want your contract to be? How much do you want?
You want him? Jesus, Colin wanted him. Removed from Mile High last month and fell to the Wolves.
Well, the thing is, the game for a neutral. I know, like Brian, you're not a neutral. But sorry, you got beat yesterday with the Raiders, but that was a joke. But the game is so entertaining. Like even at the end, you weren't sure what was going to happen, and really enjoyable game. Hunter Renfrow had over 100 yards and didn't score a touchdown. Derek Carr didn't throw a touchdown, 249 yards passing, no interceptions, 28-38. But Colin, what a win for Washington in a low-scoring game. Do you know what? It was probably the most entertaining game. It was the most entertaining game of the day. I really enjoyed watching it.
Well, it's the second week in a row they've won 17-15. And in fairness, I think a lot of credit has to go to Riverboat Ron, because they were awful against the Broncos, and then they went to the bye. He said that he would address every aspect of the team top to bottom. He said every single position would be in play and he would look at it. And I think he's come up with a much better plan for Heineke. they're gone are the, taking the shots. It's all kind of shorter stuff. If you look at what he did yesterday, it was all short yardage stuff. They're not asking him to do too much, but it's a team that's really come together, and that's why I thought they would win. Their team spirit. I mean, in fairness to Ron, he really has built it up, and we talked about it with Cynthia. I asked her about, like, they've lost their 2 premier rushers, but the team has come together. And I'm interested to see, I suppose, in terms of Chase Young, how he will come back next year, because this is a guy who didn't, missed some of training camp because he was modeling, and he said, well, you got to get the dollars. And I wonder, did that attitude kind of seep into, because they were so disappointing, whereas now we're seeing the Washington defense that we expected, a much more together team. The Raiders, well, look, they've had their issues throughout the season. And look, I think this is the reality of Derek Carr at the Raiders, certainly. He's at times he's fantastic, but I just don't think he can take you over the hump when the pressure is on, when the expectations are there. They're at home. It's a game that they're favored for. I still have concerns about Derek Carr in that situation. I think he can be a very capable game manager, and hey, for the Broncos, he's probably ahead of what we have, but I don't think he's capable of taking that jump into the upper echelons of QBs in the NFL. And I think ultimately that's the difference maker in this league.
I'm not sure what the Raiders were doing on that last drive when they got the ball back after the field goal. And kudos to that kicker for coming in, because they had 14 inches, and a lot of people felt that they would have gone for it, and obviously taking the 14 inches, get the first down, and allow him a more manageable field goal. He kicks a 42-yarder, and then the next drive, check downs when you're trying to get down the field to get a field goal. The one prior to that, actually, I don't know if you're going to agree, but I thought it was a poor call by the referees. Bearing in mind what we saw in that Raiders-Dallas game last week, where the long ball from Carrie Man was clearly held back, and the referee missed it.
It was ironic, though, because they were robbed against Dallas. Sorry, Dallas were robbed against the Raiders, in my opinion, and then the Raiders were robbed.
It's a different set of referee and officials. Like, it's the same.
I know.
It's the same group that obviously do each game every week. But yeah, I suppose the law of averages throughout the season, they tend to come. You get some, you lose them. So it pretty much played out that way. But we've seen this from the Raiders this season. As Colin said, when they're favourites and the expectations, they're at home. They were home to the Bears, they lost, and they were home yesterday. And I didn't see yesterday's game as a massive shock. I mean, going into the game, by the time the game started, the line was a point in terms of the Raiders were -1 point. So it was very much a kind of a pick-em type of game. So I didn't see it as a massive shock, because Washington have been playing so well. They actually remind me, albeit, you're saying about Chase Young not being there, but they're reminding me of where they were this time last year in terms of they were getting momentum at the right time. Went on a run. Obviously, the division last year was a lot, wasn't as competitive, but they're playing the Cowboys this weekend at home. And if they were to beat the Cowboys this weekend, they're only 1 game behind. And I think, they have to play them again before the season's out. So where it looked like for a long time, this division, we were saying this division's going to be sewing up and the Cowboys will be taking the foot off the gas. It's far from it now. And Washington, right now it's hard to call which way that game will go the weekend.
Really exciting end of the season in the NFCs. Looking forward to it. Next game we're going to look at is Sunday Night Football. The Chiefs beat the Broncos 22-9. Broncos falling 6-6. Chiefs 8-4. Statistically, the worst passer rating games for both Teddy Bridgewater and Patrick Mahomes over their career. Patrick Mahomes 15 for 29, 184 yards, 1 interception, no passing touchdowns. Not on to Kelsey. Kelsey finished on 27 yards. So the Broncos defense done its job, but I just take my hat off here. Not unfortunately, Colin. The Broncos couldn't get it done against the Chiefs, and we've seen it, Brian, against your Giants as well. The Chiefs, if your defense is good, and if you have a half-decent offense, that team is there for the taking. What do you think, Colin?
Where do you start if you're the Broncos? Yeah, Teddy Bridgewater wasn't good enough. Simple as that. Teddy Bridgewater isn't good enough. He's not a franchise QB, and then people know that. And yeah, you can have a go at Pat Shurmur as well, absolutely. Pat Shurmur is probably not up to play calling the stuff he calls when he calls behind the sticks when you're on 3rd down and 8 and he calls for a 5-yard pass. Absolutely. But neither Teddy Bridgewater nor Pat Shurmur were with the Broncos in 2019 when they scored 3 points in Arrowhead. And last night's performance was very reminiscent of the Broncos last year in Arrowhead. Yeah, they got 16 points, but they threw 2 interceptions. And again, it was the same. The Broncos have held the Chiefs in check. They 22-23. But ultimately, Vic Fangio has lost 5 games against the Chiefs. And last night was the 3rd time in those 5 losses that the Broncos have failed to score at least 10 points. They've failed to get into double digits on 3 of those occasions. Now, Vic Fangio is a great defensive mind, but Vic Fangio is not hired as the defensive coordinator of the Denver Broncos. He's hired to be the head coach of the Denver Broncos. Who enjoyed, like, outside of Chiefs fans, who enjoyed that game last night? Who enjoyed watching that type of football?
Raiders and Chargers fans. But yes, I agree.
Why? The Broncos aren't a threat to
That's a good point. Yeah.
the Raiders or the Chargers, so I can't imagine they would have enjoyed watching it. The other things, Tom McMahon's hi Colts fans, you'll remember Tom McMahon from his time up there. His special teams units continue to be utterly embarrassing. Be it muff punts, be it allowing, almost giving away block field goals. Where do you want to start? The only positive for the Broncos was Javonte Williams, who was absolutely outstanding. He's a great young running back, and that was the one positive I think the Broncos can take from last night's game. Outside of, the defense was good, but the defense is very highly paid, very highly regarded. We know the defense should be good.
Brian, I can't wait to see who's going to win the West, because, if the Chargers were to sneak in the first by the end of the season, surely, Brian, if you are a head coach in the AFC with a good defense and a good offense, you must look at this Kansas City team and think, we can take them.
There's been teams that have won Super Bowls based on defenses, as you know well, from 5 or 6 years ago. Right now, we now have to recognize the fact it's not the Chiefs team of old. It's a different Chiefs team that we're dealing with now. And this Chiefs team will, for me, inevitably win the division, and it'll be because of the defense. When we did the preview of this game, I said that I felt that it would be a comfortable enough win for the Chiefs, because I felt defensively they would be able to manage Teddy Bridgewater, and that's essentially how it played out. Yeah, Mahomes hasn't got it going this season, and maybe he won't get it going. Maybe he'll get it going during the playoffs, but right now he doesn't have to. He's in a situation where that defense has rebounded very well from the first 5 or 6 games where they were, let's be honest, they were shambles at that stage of the season. They were giving up an average 34 points a game. But whatever's happened, in the first few times it worked, we said, look, they're not playing against strong opposition. But look, it's working for them at the moment, and it's hard to, like, Colin, sorry, on the special teams one. When I watched the game this morning, I've not known the score. The minute I saw that, I actually thought back to the situation in the Ravens game. If you remember, just before halftime, I think there was like 30 seconds, and the special teams allowed like a 60, 70-yard run. It's just every time. It's like when they go to punt, when there's a punt coming, or they're either returning or the other way around, your heart's in your mouth because you just don't know what's going to come. Mm-hmm. Shurmur on that 4th and 2. I mean, 20 plays in that drive to come away with no points, that's demoralizing. That, to me, that's when the game was, you just knew how the game was going to go. I would have taken the field goal at that stage. You can't walk away from a drive where you've taken up so much time on the clock and not come away with points. And why? At that stage of the game wasn't gone. It wasn't a situation we need. And Shurmur's calling a 4th and 2, a run play and a 4th and 2 when you can see there's 5 or 6 guys in the box and it's completely stacked. So run against us if you want. You're not going to be able to beat us. Anyway, my troubles with Pat Shurmur, but look, he's only your coordinator, not your head coach. But right now, I don't think it'd make any difference the way you feel about your current head coach.
I'm very open-minded. I think there's no point in me losing my head over this. I watched the game this morning up at 6 o'clock and watched it. Delighted, best decision ever. I'm not trying to rub that in, Colin. Just I really needed to do that. I'm going to do that tonight as well. So if anybody texts me, my data will be off. So yeah, obviously watching the game, I watched every play, fast forward through the breaks. For me, the situation with Obviously it's 10-3. You've got 30 seconds left. You've got a field goal opportunity there. We've got a kicker that can kick it for 60 or 70 yards. Maybe or attempted. The game was sitting 13-3 at the end of the third quarter. So, we can sit here and we can talk about the Chiefs defense and all that. That's great. But I mean, for me, half decent offense would have won this game last night. It is what it is, and I'm sure Mahomes will turn it on down the stretch. And congrats to KC in the win. I have to give it to him.
Michael, we've said that about numerous games with the Chiefs this season. We said that when the Packers went in, and the Packers had Love playing quarterback. The Packers should have walked away from that game. Chiefs defense won it. Said the same thing. My frustration when the Giants played really well in Arrowhead, but defensively the Chiefs snuffed them out.
There's a bit of breaking news, and it's not Mark, by the way. Hi, Mark. Keenan Allen has been placed on the COVID-19 list.
That's good. That means the Giants will only lose by 10 this weekend as opposed to
20. In fairness to that Chiefs defense, and granted it was Jordan Love, but they held the Packers to 7, they held the Cowboys to 9, and they held the Broncos to 9. I mean,
five games in a row under 20 points they've conceded, I think.
Yeah.
They've won 6 out of 7 games. They're back in firing form, and yet 2 people on this show picked the Broncos to win that game. Delusional, boys. Delusional.
No,
I thought I genuinely I thought the Broncos would score more than 9 points more. I thought if we get to 20 or so, we have a chance. And
I'll be honest, I'm not having a pop, but I'm trying to be objective on this. From what I've seen from the Broncos this season, it's boom or bust. You've come out with some amazing wins, like against the Cowboys and stuff. But genuinely, after the first 2 drives, I thought the game was done. Broncos offense looked awful, and the Chiefs offense put 7 points on the board. And I was like, this game is done.
Okay.
And so it proved. Anyway.
Well, one thing though, Mark, the running back who had the most yards from scrimmage in week 13, thus up to this point, I mean, maybe tonight, who knows, given the conditions, but do you know who that was?
Was he a player on a team that's only 6-6 and out of the playoff spots?
It is.
Okay.
A player who was dismissed on this show just a couple of weeks ago, Javante Williams, in his first start.
Get the popcorn out. Mark's back.
Are we done? Yeah. We're done.
Who the Chiefs got next week? Is
2 yards on the ground.
Oh yeah, I know.
The Chiefs have to play the Chargers, and they play the Broncos again. They play the Chiefs have to play the Raiders, the Chargers, the Steelers, the Bengals, and the Broncos. So,
gents, you may have already discussed this, but for me, the most fascinating thing, one of the fascinating things is, how about the race for the number 1 seed in the AFC now? The Chiefs don't have a particularly threatening stretch. The Titans have the easiest stretch of all. I think they've only got to play the Steelers as the only team that's 500 or above. But of course, they're down Derrick Henry and haven't looked great the last couple of weeks. The Bills and the Pats could level each other off. I mean, it's going to be tight. But the Chiefs actually are probably in a real prime position. I mean, the Ravens obviously lost, and they've got a killer stretch in the AFC North.
The Ravens' offense is broken at the moment.
I think that Chiefs schedule is difficult. I'm taking my hat off here. I think you got 3 division games. You got the Steelers. We can talk about the Steelers a different time. But like the Bengals, you're looking at teams like the Chargers are going to be going for everything in that game. The Raiders need to win after yesterday, and I mean, but the Broncos probably.
Well, I mean, it's fascinating any way you look at it, and like Brian just said, the Ravens' offense. I mean, I think they've scored under 20 points in the last 5 games.
Yeah,
as well. So there is definitely no champion. There's no leader of the gang in the AFC anyway, which still explains how the Houston Texans were the first team to be eliminated from the playoffs. Actually, that's the only team so far in the entire NFL that is eliminated from playoff contention. The Lions can still technically qualify for the playoffs.
Yeah, because it still remains an absolute shambles, and the NFL and nobody wants to deal with the Deshaun Watson situation, which still hangs around like a bad smell.
Yes, love in the comments, folks. I appreciate it.
Mark, the Vikings cockerel, what was it? That last one there.
Sorry,
I missed it.
I just love how Mark pops up tonight, not all nights. Welcome in. The Pittsburgh Steelers beat the Baltimore Ravens 20-19. Tony Romo, boys. Whenever he said go for 2, and he didn't really mean it, and then he actually did. Who watches The Simpsons here? You know, whenever Apu was like, "What were you thinking?" I was literally sitting going, like, I get the guts, I get the ballsy call. Pittsburgh get the win. Big Ben, 2 touchdowns, 236 yards. Lamar Jackson, did he have 3 or how many interceptions did they have yesterday? Oh no, just the one. Just the one. It looked though, Colin, in the first quarter, I think he was going to throw at least 2 or 3, but he balanced it, but he relied on Devonta Freeman big time yesterday, I think.
Yeah, but I suppose that's what in fairness, that's what they're known for. I thought the Ravens came out and like their defense in particular in that first half was very good. And the Steelers came more into it. But look, this game, it's about TJ Watt. Like, talk about a masterclass. Like, I mean, realistically, you are talking about TJ Watt or Micah Parsons for Defensive Player of the Year. And that's saying something with Micah Parsons, not just rookie, I think Defensive Player, but what talk about responding to Parsons. He was fantastic. He was the reason the Steelers won that game. He has 12 pressures, I think, which is the highest all season. 6 QB hits, 3.5 sacks, and obviously on the 2-point play. The 2-point play, I mean, you know, it was interesting because Harbaugh, you expect him. To go for something like that. Tomlin is known as possibly being the most conservative coach in the game, and then afterwards in the press conferences, Tomlin said, "Well, we know that they rely on analytics and they're aggressive, so in that way they're predictable, and we knew what to expect." You can say that when you've snuck a win, I think, but in fairness to Tomlin, he finds a way to do it. Deontay Johnson was very good for the Steelers as well. For the Ravens, losing Humphrey, awful loss on a season where they've had so many injuries. It's going to be really tough for them, but put nothing past them. But yeah, for the Steelers, for me, it's about watching what TJ Watt can do over the course of the rest of the season. This is kind of like when the Broncos were, you know, Von Miller was trailblazing through the playoffs. This is, can TJ Watt put the franchise on his back and lead them to the playoffs?
I didn't agree with them going for 2-point. I felt they were better safe going to overtime and hoping that your kicker, who's arguably one of the best kickers in the league, gets an opportunity to kick you a winning field goal. But I can understand, having looked at it today, you know, in more detail, I can understand his logic, because the offense didn't play well throughout the game. So he probably felt if they got the ball, would they be able to move it? And then, as Collins said, the Humphrey was gone, probably their best cornerback, and then their other cornerback on the other side was in and out of the game for large parts because I think he was suffering with an illness or something like that. So he probably felt if the Steelers got the ball, haven't been able to move it more so in the fourth quarter, would they have got the ball back anyway to have a chance? And that was probably the logic. We have an opportunity now to win it. Let's go and win it. But what I felt was, and I said at the column today when we had a brief chat about it, that it's the game, the significance of the game. It's a divisional game. They're going for the number 1 seed. It's not like a situation towards the back end of the season when you've nothing to play for and you'll go for 2 points and try win a game to get everybody off the field. You know, they could end up losing out to the number 1 seed by a game. And a lot of Ravens fans will look back and say, this is the game that if only we had went to overtime and won it, we'd be the number 1 seed, as opposed to going on the road during the playoffs. Look, it'll all play itself out, but I didn't understand the logic in it, because Big Ben, it's not like you were going up against, well, I won't say Patty Mahomes because Michael doesn't think he can go up and down the field anymore, Aaron Rodgers. So he probably, you know, it wasn't like they were going up against a top tier quarterback now. Looks like Big Ben's going to retire at the end of this season. I would have taken my chance going to overtime. But yeah. Tomlin, he finds ways. That's why he's such a great head coach in the league.
I've never said that about Patrick Mahomes. I'm sure he'll do it next week. Just on top of stats this season so far, I'm sure he'll do it in the playoffs, as you said. And their defense is 85 Bears, going by what we've all talked about here. You did mention that about Big Ben. Mark, we had a show pre-recorded on Saturday night. One thing we didn't get to mention that came out on Saturday night was that Big Ben news. Big Ben saying last night that he hasn't talked to anybody. Do you think that's bull, or do you think it's all written in the stars?
I don't know. Ben's turned into the Monday version of Brett Favre the last while. You know, it's kind of like, oh, I'm not coming back. Oh, I'm coming back. Oh, I'm not coming back. Oh, convince me. Oh, I'll come back then if you must. I mean, it comes a bit of a drama with him. The reality is the last 2 years, he's never been the most mobile quarterback, and that's saying something. But he's looked old. I mean, we said actually in the game earlier this season, Brady looked old. You think about Big Ben, though, outside of Brady, who were his contemporaries? Philip Rivers and Eli Manning. They both retired the last couple of years. I mean, it is still a young man's game inherently. He is very old in terms of quarterback terms. And for the most part, he looks it on the field. I think it's actually real this year, and that's going to put the Steelers in a bit of disarray because I'm not sure Mason Rudolph's the answer. I don't think they've got the solution therefore on their roster, and they have to adapt pretty rapidly during the draft, or indeed they could be a player in free agency now for someone. But it does feel like it's coming to the end of a line. It does feel like the Steelers probably need to reset a little bit there. And you don't really see him having much more gas left in the tank. But whether it's all just an elaborate chase me, no, don't chase me, don't chase me. We'll see as the rest of the season unfolds. Last night, Ben didn't do anything until the fourth quarter. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, I'm going to wake up. But conversely, you can say the same about the Ravens. Until the last drive, the last 2 minutes, Lamar Jackson didn't look like he was going to do anything. Yes, Mark Andrews dropped a few passes and didn't help him out. But that Steelers defense did put him in check. And the Steelers have been not great for the last few weeks. But it's the Steelers-Ravens. It's always going to be tight. It's always going to be tense. Tomlin and Harbaugh now have faced off the third most times in NFL history out of head coaches matchups. Shula, I can't remember actually the other two at the top of my head, but they know each other inside now. It's now 15-15, I think, overall, or 15-15-1. I think there might have been a tie in there, but it's dead tight. So you knew it was going to be close. And yeah, Brian, I get your point on the 2-pointer. I didn't mind the 2-point call. They've done nothing on offense all game. They've got a chance to walk off with the win. The Ravens have pulled a few out of the bag the last while, and maybe he thought it was going to roll the dice and get one more out of it. But like I say, they're 8-4 now. Patriots 8-4, Titans 8-4, Chiefs 8-4. Roll on the intrigue the last 5 weeks of the season.
Loving how tight it is. I think John was just trying to show his brother up after a good weekend from Michigan.
As I missed a bit at the start, do people in Michigan, are they still alive? Because not only did Michigan make the Final Four at last, but the Lions won? Seriously, it was like,
I know.
To come at once.
Let's see what happens. Michigan play Georgia, yeah? Have I got that correct? And Alabama.
I think so, yeah. Michigan, Georgia,
Cincinnati,
Alabama.
For the Irish NFL show College Football Special, New Year's Eve, live at 5 p.m. That was a joke. Lamar Jackson has got 16 touchdowns, 13 interceptions so far this season. Granted, he hasn't played all these games so far this season. That is almost half his total interceptions in his career so far. Just merely saying that. I'm going to move on. Shout out to, I know Mark Hogan was at the Cardinals game at the weekend in Soldier Field. I think the scoreline is generous, 33-22. Shoot me down for saying that, but Colin, this wasn't a contest, was it? In Chicago?
Oh yeah, I for a split second, Michael, I thought you meant generous to the Cards. No, this wasn't a contest in any way, shape, or form. Andy Dalton had a nightmare. That he just was horrific. Now, he wasn't helped, and some Bears fans don't like this, but he was not helped by that O-line, which is terrible. That's great. It can block for running. That is fantastic. But the whole thing about the Bears this season was it was supposed to be about developing a young QB who's now out with rib injuries, which we still don't know, was it one hit or was it an accumulation of hits? Now, if it's an accumulation of hits, that tells you all you need to know about this O-line. That tells you all you need to know about the front office and the head coach and what they constructed to develop their young QB. No, this was not a contest yesterday. The Cards were in control the whole time. And like Kyler Murray, it's hilarious to watch him, and he kind of just puts the hand up, and will he throw it? No, he just walks it in again. the Bears, the best thing about the Bears is David Montgomery, who is a fantastic runner, and has kind of taken over from Allen Robinson as the Allen Iverson.
Jesus Christ.
Allen Robinson as the focal point of their offense.
He'd do a better job than Allen Robinson at the minute.
Well, he's been out injured. Look, who is counting down the end of the season the quickest? Is it the Texans? Is it the Jags? Or is it the Bears? Because I think realistically, the fan base that most wants rid of their head coach is the Bears.
And imagine you can throw in the GM Ryan Pace on top of that, Colin, because like you'd have to question who's making the decision on the next head coach, and will the fans be happy that if it's still Pace, he's the one? Because at this stage, I don't think they have any faith in him. Colin Murray, we touched on it. It's kind of worked out very well for the Cards. That's 7 road wins in a row, and they won a lot of games when he was out that we probably felt that they wouldn't with Colt McCoy as quarterback. But he looked back to himself yesterday, threw for 2 touchdowns, ran into, and he only threw for 123 yards in the game. When you were looking at it, when it was popping back in the red zone, we were seeing particular plays, and it looked like he was having a great day. He was quite conservative really in the end, but that's because James Conner had a great game running the ball, and the Bears couldn't stop him. I think he ran something in the region of 140, and he scored touchdowns. It's a nice win for the Cards, who have the Rams this week, and for the Bears, yeah, I mean, where do they go? There's no where's the rebuild start? Because we know that they're down on picks next year in this draft because they went all in on Justin Fields. It's hard to see how it's going to be a long struggle for the Bears in this offseason.
¿Dónde es la biblioteca? ¿Cuánto vale 2 cervezas, por favor? Sorry, I'm just practicing my Spanish because I'm auditioning for the Bears offensive line to be a matador, to just let things flow straight by and just wave a cape at them as they go past.
I was wondering where I was going.
Yeah, I was going to get there. I was going to get there eventually. But basically, to Colum's point about how bad the O-line has been, it has been abysmal all year. We talked about the infamous game when Justin Fields threw ultimately for a net 7 yards in the entire game. Was it minus 7 yards in the entire game? You can't, I'm not sure Justin Fields is the answer. I'm not sure there is an answer, however, given what they're putting out there on an O-line to try to protect the passes. Andy Dalton is not a savant. He is not Aaron Rodgers. He is not Tom Brady. He's not Patrick Mahomes. Not one of the greatest quarterbacks in the NFL. He is, however, a very decent functional quarterback if you give him time and you give him just a little bit of protection. 0, less than 0. I mean, obviously, the interceptions were like gifted.
Some of them were very bad, Mark.
Some of them were very bad throws. But frankly, I would be petrified in his shoes having to stand behind that line, just wondering where the next hit's coming from. So I'm not going to forgive him necessarily, but I'm just going to comment on just how bad it is. I mean, the only good thing for the Bears is at least they weren't the worst AFC North team yesterday. The Vikings and the soon-to-be departed Mike Zimmer definitely take that trophy from them, at least for 1 week. But, on the other side of the coin, Cards first team to 10 wins. With the Rams drop off last while, they actually have a bit of breathing room there in the NFC West, which is nice for them. And it's nice for their positioning for the number 1 seed, the only one that gets a bye, of course. So good for them to stay on track and good to start getting people back healthy. Kyler, DeAndre looking back closer to themselves every week, which is good to see.
Next up for the Bears, Sunday Night Football. Packers. Jesus wept.
Oh, Sunday Night Football fans, you got the Broncos offense and the Bears offense.
How is that not flexed?
Andy Dalton would have done better than Teddy Bridgewater last night.
I know it's a big rivalry, but how is that game not flexed? Seriously.
Andy Dalton had the 5th 4-interception game of his 150-game career. 5th 4-interception game. And and
the Bears still scored 22 points. So.
They did. But as we have discussed, the Broncos scored 3 points at Arrowhead just 2 years ago.
Okay. And then the Bears have the Vikings, Monday Night Football. And look, it's all not bad news for the Bears or the Bears. Tevin Jenkins should play. at some point before 2034. Let's move on.
Sorry, Michael, one last thing you asked, who wants the season to end quickest? I actually think Giants fans do, because they still have the Bears' #1 pick, so they're quite happy with how things are going. So that's
our next game. The Dolphins beating the Giants 20-9. Tua Taglio, I'm going to have to learn how to pronounce that surname. Tua Taglio, 30-41, 244 yards, 2 touchdowns. Myles Gaskin, 44 yards rushing. Jalen Waddle leading the receiving for the day. But Matt Collins and Isaiah Ford get the touchdowns. Collectively, they had 7 yards. Mike Glennon had 187 yards, one interception. Saquon Barkley had an average of 5 yards on a rush. And I don't have anything else to say about this game. Colin, do you want to talk about it? Or?
The Giants feel very much like the Broncos. A head coach who is, has a reputation for being very competent on certain aspects of the game, but then you look at that offense, and Peter King pointed it out today. So late in the third quarter, Giants had the ball. Glennon takes a 13-yard sack. Giants take a timeout to avoid a delay game penalty. Then Glennon gets a 7-yard sack. Giants take a delay of game penalty. It's 3rd and 33. The Giants call a run, a gain of 13. I mean, if that doesn't sound like Vic Fangio and Pat Shurmur, I don't know what does. And it's similar sorts of questions. I mean, next week, they looks like they'll be without Jones and Glennon. So what is the Giants' cue? What is the
Andy Dalton?
No, they'll have Jake Fromm. They'll have him in there. But it will. What's their long-term answer at QB? And just in terms of scoring points, I mean, the defense kind of does an okay job, although you'd have to say for the Dolphins, they having been 1-7, they're now 6-7, and Tua, with all that talk about the Deshaun Watson stuff, has really come alive after the injury. He has learned, in terms of a bad O-line, just get rid of it as quickly as you possibly can. But he is very fortunate. He has Jalen Waddle, who has been absolutely outstanding, has been really fantastic. And you have to take your hats off to the Dolphins and to Flores. I expected them to be in the playoffs before the season began. Then all hope looked lost, but all of a sudden they're really in form. And you'd have to say, I mean, we're talking about the Ravens offense being all at sea. Brian Flores may have developed the blueprint as to how you go about, taking on the Ravens.
I have a very quick point, Brian. It's a bold prediction from me, and it does represent your Giants. Daniel Jones won't play again this season. I think we're being told nothing. I don't think he'll play again this season. And maybe that might be good for him the rest of
They've been talking about it for the last week, Michael. He's not going to play.
But they said he might be back next week. Adam Schefter's just said they hope he won't miss too much time. I don't think he'll play again this season.
He's not going to play again this season. Not a chance. They haven't even got a proper evaluation on the injury. He's definitely not playing this weekend. Glennon is definitely not playing this weekend. I don't want to get into the quarterback situation. I actually want to, fairness to the defense. I said in the show that I feel sorry for the defense, because the defense has got its act together over the past while. And with 10 minutes to go in the game, they'd only given up 10 points. If your defense is holding teams to 10 points in the fourth quarter, you'd like to think your offense will be able to do enough to win the game. Glennon played with a concussion in the second half, and they didn't even know it. And then you've got Judge coming out after the game saying, I saw great strides with players today, and offense did this. He's completely, he's bonkers. He's absolutely bonkers. I think everybody's had enough from him now at this stage, because he's just coming out with this constant stuff. It's just, you're listening to the same riff raff every week. They need to clean house completely. But he's coming out and saying after the game, I saw really good things in the offense and how they played. They scored 3 field goals in the game. What's he talking about? We were saying on the show the weekend, the Dolphins offense last week scored 28 points against the Panthers defense, which a lot of people feel is a really good defense. And would they be able to deliver them? But they live with them in terms of keeping them, to 10 points with 10 minutes to go. And even the field goal at the end was in kind of garbage time field goal that the Dolphins got. So, they're running the clock. The Giants pulled timeouts, held them up, and they kicked the field goal. So, the touchdown they got was just before halftime. If you're a defensive player, you must be saying, what is the point?
Sorry, Brian. Apologies. I'm jumping.
No, you're all right. Go on.
Apologies. Sorry. Keith was saying about Dublin locations. Keith, Belfast, Lavery's. We'll probably be open in June 2022. And if not, the Woolshed is a very good. I'm sure Brian will come down for that and wear his fins up. Sure. Mark, any last words on the Dolphins against the Giants? Have you anything to add to that conversation?
The Dolphins, I think, became the 6th team in NFL history to go from 1-7 to 6-7. They are
7 in a row or 5 in a row? 5 in a row.
5 in a row. They are remarkably very much a part of the playoff picture. They've got a shot at the wild card. It's very real shot. They do still have to play the Pats and the Bills, obviously, later in, and the season is not nicest of run-ins, but they've got a legitimate shot, which is why when we were talking about, the London game and various games they threw away earlier in the season, and the Falcons game looked so depressing for them in many respects. But they're there and thereabouts. Flores is righting the ship. Tua still not convinced, but yes, we're talking about bad offensive lines. I definitely think the Miami's qualifies as a bad offensive line. And Brian, the Giants, even when we were praising Daniel Jones earlier in the season, saying, hey, okay, I can start to say he's probably put together a couple of the best games he's had in a while. They've had 5 games this season where they've scored more than 20 points.
I know.
5 out of 12, more than 20 points. I mean, Garrett paid for it with his job. Judge, I think it's inevitable. He's got to go. I think Gesselman's got to go, and they've got to clean house. Again, the only question I have for the Giants is how do they avoid continuing in this cycle like the other New York team, the Jets, in this regard? Because it does seem a bit of a downward spiral. Look, I don't want to dive on it. They're having another poor season. They still need to reset and hopefully regenerate things. But I like Joe Judge as a coach. I remember him from New England days. He was, he's a very intelligent guy, but it's just not working. The question is, what will?
Okay, just sorry, a few more points. I know people are bored and stuff on the Giants. But so this weekend, Jake Fromm is going to play quarterback, who signed off the practice squad from the Bills. 5th round pick last year in 2020 draft. He was the 4th quarterback on the Bills roster. Mitch Trubisky 2, Davis Webb 3, and he was the 4th. So that shows how his career has gone. And was Jason Garrett really the problem? Because the offense in the last 2 games has actually looked worse since he's left. So was he masking over some of the issues in terms of what he was play calling? And Judge, I mean, what he's saying, and unless he's coming out publicly and just saying things to keep, not to be throwing people under the bus, but what he's coming out with and what everybody's seeing on television are 2 very different things. So, yeah, I just think it's time to move. You can't do one without the other because it just starts the cycle again, as you said, Mark, of GM comes in who didn't pick the head coach and so on and just goes around in circles. You're better off cleaning house and having a fresh start.
Yeah. And actually, Michael, to close out, I think the Dolphins have played the Bills twice already. I think it's Jets, Saints, Titans, and Pats. They still have the Titans and the Pats, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, sorry about that. Things will get better for Giants soon. I really do believe that. AOB, I'm going to look at Garner. I'm going to look at the Eagles. Fairly free team against the Jets. Garner, Minshew. What a G. What an OG. What a man. 242 yards. Had a perfect game for a point. 20 for 25 attempts. 2 touchdowns. But Kenneth Gainwell, what a name for running back. 54 yards on the day, but he was the backup running back going into it until Sanders went down towards the end injured. A touchdown on the day as well. Eagles improving to 6-7. Colin, who have you got?
Look, he started off very well, but the second half he was non-existent. I guess they relied on the run game, and we saw he will be in Andrew Brandt's business Hall of Fame. I guarantee that one when the time comes. The Bucks and Brady, there is nobody who is as good at exploiting a weakness as Thomas Brady. The Falcons secondary is horrific, and Brady said, we're just not going to run the ball. I'm just going to throw it. And Lenny, you're going to continue with this pass catching thing that you've done. One-handed catch, Lenny. Playoff Lenny showed up early. Just to give you a stat as well on Brady, Don't let him get to the red zone. Since he arrived at the Bucs, including the playoffs, inside the red zone, he has 60 touchdowns and 0 interceptions.
I'll go with the Rams. I mean, it was a comfortable win yesterday, but I still didn't feel they were. It's strange. You're saying they weren't convincing. The score was so dominant if you look at it, but for large parts of the game, Matthew Stafford looked a bit off. Didn't seem to be getting things going again with Cup and stuff. And I'm just not convinced in the long run this team is going to, like Marcus already alluded to, the fact that the Cards have the run on them in terms of being a couple of games ahead of them when they play each other next Monday night. So if the Cards were to beat them at home, essentially eliminates their chance of winning the division. And then if they go on the road in the playoffs, I'm not convinced. For a team that we all felt were at a very early stage of the season, we're probably one of the main ones in terms of potentially going to the Super Bowl. Right now, I don't think it's going to happen.
The feeling that you have about the Rams, I have about Kansas City. I know the Rams have the talent that they started the season off, but that exact feeling I have about Kansas City. Sorry, Mark, the stage is yours.
No, I'm all right, Michael. I'm just I'm smiling in one sense because Gardner Minshew kept the Eagles on track. I called them a couple of weeks ago that they've got a real chance getting a wild card, and they're in that position at the moment. Thomas Edward, Patrick Brady, Column is now up to 698 combined touchdowns, regular and postseason. So he will eclipse that magic 700 mark at some point. And on the Rams, Brian, I can't wholeheartedly agree. Why am I recapping the games you're talking about? Because the only one that's left is the Colts versus the Texans. And there ain't a whole lot to say about that. 31 and zip. I mean, Colts took care of business. They did exactly what was expected. They got in, they got out, they got a very comfortable win, and they kept their train very much on track. And the Texans, I mean, Brian, I hate this, but they have the exact same amount of games they've scored 20 points in than the Giants have. They've got 5. The difference is, however, the Texans have 6 games this year where they've scored less than 10. In the modern NFL, 6 games, maybe it's even 7, but it's pretty pathetic. 2 the shutouts. Column, I don't want to start a rant. I know you're building up, but they've still won more games than the Lions. So, they did something right.
Are they a better team than the Lions?
Yeah. I mean, like, it's...
Are they a better team than the Lions?
No, they're not a better team than the Lions. But the one thing that's kind of a bit sad is obviously David Culley waited for years for his head coaching chance. It's almost patently clear they kind of brought him as an interim, patsy in some respects. You wouldn't be surprised if they disposed of his services at the end of the season.
I don't think they would, Mark, because who's going to take that job on?
Well, I mean, maybe they keep him for 2 years, but it's kind of like, who else is going to take it type of thing. There's only 32 head coaching opportunities, obviously, and I just feel he's been a bit, mistreated in relation to it. I mean, it's not like it's the Mike Zimmer situation. Sorry to get on to Zimmer again, but Zimmer has a talented roster. Zimmer has all the capabilities and all the possibilities on offense and defense there. They just need molding. They need a good head coach. And he has been found wanting in so many scenarios and so many game management, time management, play calling, just structure of the whole organization. Yes, I'm getting onto my rant about the Vikings and never trust them, never bet on them. I didn't bet on them. Anyone who listens to this show, just remember, proved again this week, never bet on the Vikings. But he's got to be gone. So soon. Sorry.
It's gone on Black Monday.
This is the first show of us doing this. I don't know if it's going to work. So Mark and Brian might want to adjust their cameras correctly.
Wait.
Oh, yeah. Okay. It'll do. If I take this side thing out with the 2 lines, it won't be like, for example, this. So that would...
We'll put up with it.
We'll put up with a decent game. I didn't have time to edit the tonight thing, but decent game tonight. We have the Buffalo Bills going up against the New England Patriots, number 1 seed in the AFC as it stands. Are they, or are the Chiefs back number 1? Did that change overnight? Because Mark didn't mention it, so has it changed?
Pats are still number one seed.
Pats still number one, yeah.
No problem. Well done for not talking about it, Mark. I know you're keeping yourself close to your chest there. But then again, your Bucks played yesterday. This is an intriguing game because as we went on there at the start of the show, there was like ridiculous wind. We're talking storm bar best sort of stuff. But now the snow's picked up as well. So it's proper football weather. I look forward to watching this game tonight at 6 a.m. recorded with the fire on and a cup of coffee. The picks are presented by Matchbook Betting Exchange. We'll have a little gander on the bets in a minute, maybe, but I don't want to give away our picks. Colin, who have you off of this game and why? Big game.
It should be a fascinating game between these two teams, and in fairness to Mark, he can be smug because his team has seemingly solved their QB situation after just one season and made the absolute right decision to move on from Cam. They now sit atop the AFC and they're going to play the Bills. And look, both of these teams will be used to this weather, but I think this suits the Patriots down to the ground. Not a team that takes particularly deep shots downfield, and a team that has relied on its run game far more than the Bills. I would expect the Patriots to absolutely attempt certainly to run it down the Bills' throats, and the Colts showed that is possible. So to me, that's it. This is given the conditions, and I mean, I don't know if people watching have surely seen the tweets, the wind. It's absolutely howling. Snow looks more like sleet, so it's not going to be fun. If the Patriots can keep Matt Judon fit, he is having that kind of TJ Watt type, Von Miller in 2015 type run where he can just wreck a game plan. I'm going to say if you allow Bill Belichick to get into this position, he doesn't tend to let it drop. It's the Patriots winning this one for me.
Michael, I know you'd be interested to know from a betting perspective. At 7 o'clock this evening, I had a look. It was 1.5 points in terms of the Bills were favourites. Now the Bills have gone to 3-point favourites. I don't know if that's whether the people feel the weather will be better suited to this Bills team. And I'm trying to think of a game this season, maybe Mark will throw it out there, where they played against a team was a running quarterback. So as good as this Patriots defense has been all season, I was struggling to go through a game where they actually came up against someone who could be more dynamic in terms of not just throwing the ball, but actually being able to run. But the problem for the Bills is it is Josh Allen, it's the run game, because we look at players like Singletary and they haven't really produced to the effect in terms of getting the yards. And some of the games this season where they can't run, the teams have doubled up and played safety cover too and stuff like that, and they haven't been able to beat them. I think it'll be a low-scoring game. I can see it going right into the fourth quarter. But I'm just going to side with the Bills, and it's not a true conviction. I just think it's one of those games that, and I actually wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots knock them off when they go into Foxborough and they match the series 1-1. But for me, I think the Bills will just find a way to win the game.
Brian alludes to the one inherent weakness that does worry me. The only time you can say the Pats have faced a real running quarterback this year, possibly Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, in terms of Dak's capabilities as a runner and movement in the pocket. Less so than Josh Allen. I've put Josh Allen in a better category as a runner. But obviously, I mean, we recapped what the Cowboys did to the Patriots defense that Sunday night, the most yards ever given up by Bill Belichick coach defense, only probably kept in the game through the Cowboys' sloppiness. However, the weather is not going to help the Bills in terms of how they structure their offense. There is a leveler very much. Kyle Duggar is missing for the Patriots, a name that goes under the radar, but the Patriots, 3 safeties, Duggar, Phillips, and McCourty, are all over 80% of playing time. They play a 3-safety look, which helps the confusion, helps the disguise a lot, and that's going to mean a few jiggery-pokery shifts in the secondary, which is always difficult to deal with. Jamie Collins also coming off IR to play, so useful reinforcements in terms of dynamic threat, but it's probably more a Jawan Bentley game in terms of trying to stop a run attack in a very murky, dirty, windy and rainy kind of conditions. With that in mind, Dawson Knox and Hunter Henry, the touchdown machines, the two tight ends leading the touchdowns are going to be big threats, obviously, for both defenses to combine with, which is why I mentioned the Duggar threat, an issue for the Pats. But do I rank Damian Harris and Ramonde Stevenson as a 1-2 punch over what the Bills can put out there in the running game? Very simple answer on that is yes. They've combined for 11 touchdowns. They run the ball hard. The line has been shored up. Hopefully Trent Brown is still good to play at right tackle. It looks better in that regard. The Pats run a roll. Winning tonight doesn't seal even the division because they have to play again in a couple of weeks' time. And as I've said, if they finish the series 1-1 with the Bills still have the tiebreaker because the Pats lost to the Dolphins earlier in the season. The Pats really need to win it. It's going to be tough. Primetime going away from home. But my bet is on the run continuing and the Pats eking it out.
150 seconds, 154 seconds, and you didn't mention Mac Jones. Well, tonight is the birth of Mac Jones in the NFL. Welcome to the NFL, Mac Jones. Going by the weather, boys, it's like a GA Champo match on Tuesday night. Last year, Stephon Diggs completely outplayed Jackson and led the Bills to that hilarious blowout win, and Bill was raging, and the New England secondary wasn't great. That needs to happen again tonight to an extent, but this weather, I think, in terms of the betting, in terms of fantasy, in terms of everything, has put a marker on this game. It would not surprise me tonight if experience prevails a quarterback. I can see Josh Allen having a far better game than Mac Jones. We know that Josh Allen can throw in crap conditions. Can Mac Jones? I don't know. We'll find out tonight. He doesn't stretch the field often. A wet football, heavy winds, static flowing, quick 5-10 yard passing is only going to get you so much in this game. It's going to be intriguing to see what the field is like upon kickoff, but as of right now, 2.5 hours beforehand, it doesn't look good. The Bills need to stack the box and stop the run. They can do that, and because of that, Mark and boys. The Bills make me wanna shout. No?
You can play that for Bill. You can play that.
I'm taking the under.
You can play that for Bill Belichick as well if you wanted.
Bill makes okay. 21-14 to the Bills. I'm not going to say what Brian said. I actually thought for a second, Brian, you were going to say, "Oh, but the Patriots might win as well." I was actually going to leave this, but I know what you mean. In 2 weeks' time in Foxborough, the Bills have to win this game.
Have they won a close game this year? I think every one of their wins has been an absolute dominant. Beat their opponent to a bloody pulp. But I think in games where it's been
the Miami game was very close for the Bills for 2 or 3 quarters, and then they pulled away. But look, the weather is an X factor here. Let's see how Mac does. I mean, I'm sure he's been up in Foxborough there for a few months, and he knows what the weather's like, and I'm sure he's a pro, and he's going to wear gloves. And
the best Monday night football game, the best Monday night game of the season. It may not turn out that way in terms of what people would like to see, high-scoring game, but in terms of your old school NFL type of game, this is the one you want to be watching.
I mean, Michael, all I'll say to you is I respect your viewpoint, but I do not see in any way, shape, or form with the weather Josh Allen throwing the ball any more than 15 yards accurately, or any quarterback. So you're going to want your quarterback who can throw 5 or 10 yards accurately, and by all means stack the box.
Oh, of course, but if he can do it, he'll win the game. If he can do it actually in the snow
and play action, that'll do fine. But nobody's thrown it deep in this game.
I want to take a picture for social. Everyone look surprised.
What I would say is, I want to make a fine point. Mac Jones so far has, the last few weeks in particular, he's been playing really well, and the offensive line has come together. But I don't know whether he's had so far a game of this magnitude in terms of the expectation. It's the biggest game of the season for both sides. It's a Monday night, it's a primetime game, and it'd be interesting to see how he handles it. But bearing in mind who his coach is, I think he'd be fine.
Well, we like to talk about Mark as the Nostradamus because he called out the Mac Jones pick. I don't know if you gentlemen saw Jet's dad and the video going around on when the pick is made, and he melts down as he announces he's done it again. He's done it again. Just watch it. He's got his Brady 2.0. So feel sorry for poor old Jet's dad. And yes, we will see, over the course of the second half of the season what Mac Jones is made of, but very impressive thus far.
Yeah, and I was just one final point on Mac Jones, the second coming of Christ, Michael. But I think it was Kurt Warner or Troy Aikman during the week. And forgive me because I can't remember who, but he made a really great point. He said he's doing great in what he's got at the moment. I think it was Warner actually. He's making the right progressions. What's his season? Honestly, we still don't know. We still don't know. And I think that's a pretty accurate summary in relation to it. He's, how he can grow. He's in the best situation at the moment. So how he can grow and how he can evolve from there is unclear. And it could be a limited ceiling and he's going to be above average and that's it. Or it could be a higher ceiling. So I think that's a pretty fair summary on where things stand at the moment. You're playing me some lovely music, Mike. I'm not quite sure why. But
it's like the outro.
Hey,
I'm excited.
Outro music.
We've got Josh Allen, who can play in the snow, play in the wet, play in the wind against a quarterback from Florida. Went to high school in Alabama. Can't wait to see how he's going to do in the snow tonight, boys. Big game. Enjoy the game if you're watching it. We're back on Thursday night for the Steelers against
Vikings.
The Vikings on Thursday night.
Here's a stat to leave you with. In the AFC, Miami are 6-7. That gives them the 13th seed. Philadelphia are 6-7. You'll be delighted, Brian. In the NFC, they are the 8th seed.
I'm very much aware of that, Colin.
Well, what a difference between the conferences this year.
What a delight to know that.
Lovely jubbly. Boys, thanks a million. Thanks to Trust. Thanks to Matchbook. Mark, good to see you back. Enjoy the game, folks, and see you then.
Good night.